Anytime I talk to someone opening a hotel, I tell them to call Cintas. I've worked with them for years, and they're always leading the industry forward. And now, they're doing it again with Design Collective by Cintas. Gone are the days of all hotel employees looking exactly the same in outdated, mandated uniforms. Now, award-winning fashion designers at Design Collective by Cintas develop modern employee wardrobe collections. Retaining staff is about choice, and allowing employees to select garments they want is part of that choice. Employees love expressing their authentic selves, and now they can do it through apparel while their apparel stays on brand. A well-dressed team member is happier and more likely to deliver exceptional service while enhancing the overall hotel or casino experience. There is no other wardrobe collection like Design Collective. Their experience in design, along with their ability to actually implement the program, makes them the only company I'll call when it comes to employee apparel, period. Call them at 1-800-864-3676 or online at cintas.com/Design Collective.
It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn, teaching you to be the hotelier that you wanna be. It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn.
Anthony!
Are we in Vegas again?
Vegas, baby, Vegas. I can't believe it. In 1 week, we were in New York City. Now we're in Las Vegas, Nevada, one of my favorite cities on the planet, man.
Where are we going next week?
I'm going to probably go into a coma.
Oh,
from all this travel that we've been doing.
I've been to Vegas 8 times this year.
Right.
8 or 9. I'm going back. I'm coming back in a couple more weeks. It seems like every single great conference is going on in Vegas. Like, I've seen lots of conferences in Vegas.
Right.
Everybody has. But like now every single conference is here.
Right.
I don't know what all the other cities are doing.
I tell you, we're at a conference right now, and I'm just relieved we're at the Venetian and Palazzo complex because I've been to so many events at Mandalay Bay, like Mandalay Bay, getting tired of it. Nice to be on the other side of the strip for once.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you something.
Oh, yeah?
A little secret.
Yeah, what's that?
So if you happen to be at the poker table
Right.
and you're doing well,
Yeah.
you usually finish about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
So
And-
about
yeah.
3:30 this morning, I have to do our speaking gig,
Right.
and I was hungry
Yeah.
and tired. And I went to the elevator.
Right.
And you know what was right next to the elevator?
I have no idea.
A 24-hour Starbucks.
Ooh, I
It's
like
the
that.
greatest amenity in the history of hotel amenities. That at 3:30 in the morning, I don't drink coffee, but they have these little protein boxes I
Right.
like.
That's
and
cool.
I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when we were at the at HX, the hotel experience powered by AHOA in New York this past week, the Starbucks there had that little protein box with like sopressata and a prosciutto, and I love all that. Did I get my Italian on?
You
okay
did,
there?
you did, and I know you're a real chef, so I know that means a lot to you.
It really does mean a lot to me, but I also want to be a real Italian, which is never going to happen. But let's get into our guest. I feel like we're having too much banter, not enough guests.
Listen, there's way too much hair on that side of the table. Between you and him, there's way too much hair.
Well, to be fair, if I was just our guest Elliot Tamir over here, it would be way too much hair because the ratio between you two guys is literally the opposite. As he is trying to take a photograph of all this, Elliot Tamir, Campus Life and Style. How are you, sir?
I am doing very well. It's great to be here.
Yeah,
and I'm enjoying the hair. I think it works well.
I think it looks good.
I actually call it a bouffant.
I was about to say you've got this great coiffed hair going on. I'm a little bit jealous, and people say, "Glenn, you've got great hair." No, sir, you have incredible hair.
I was actually voted best hair in all of student housing. Okay, male and female.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, do me a favor, keep your mouth close to the mic so we can hear your beautiful voice. You keep going in and out, so stay close. So, before we introduce who he is, and then I'll tell you how we met and why this is an important podcast.
All right, so the reason why we thought that this would be good is you guys have this relationship that you started, and one of the things that I'm experiencing out there is this great convergence. We're seeing it all aspects of the hospitality industry, and the one area we have yet to cover is how campus housing is really morphing into more of a hospitality experience than a typical traditional apartment experience. That's why I think we're going to get some amazing amazing insight from somebody who's completely at the front of transforming the business into making it like, dang, I wish I had a place like that to stay when I was in college back in the 1990s.
And did we tell the audience where Elliot is and what he owns? And
Well, we're going to get into that right now. Elliot, who are you and what do you own?
Well, I am the co-founder and co-CEO of Vesper Holdings, and the co-founder and co-CEO of Campus Life and Style. Vesper Holdings is our real estate holding company. It's the entity that buys the real estate.
Right.
And Campus Life and Style is our management subsidiary.
Right.
We own student housing all around the country. It's purpose-built and sometimes not purpose-built, but they're off-campus, private properties that house students that go to university. And it's all off campus. It's not affiliated with universities.
That's great.
At all. It's all private. And we're currently the 8th largest privately held owner in the country.
Wow, that's pretty phenomenal. So let me just set the stage here for how different things are. I went down to Washington D.C. to go to the American Hotel and Lodging Association and Asian American Hotel Owners Association's Legislative Action Summit. And on my way down there, I stopped off at the University of Maryland College Park, my alma mater, go Terps, et cetera, et cetera. And I noticed since I graduated in 1993 how insanely different campus housing has become. I would have sworn that they built all these hotels up and down US Route 1, but no, it's a brand new style of campus housing, and it really amazes me by how far it changes. Makes me think about how different it was when I got my first apartment in my 3rd year of college, and what a literally rat-infested place that was. It was the farthest thing away from a hotel or a hospitality experience there was. So it's pretty cool that you found this incredible category and are completely reinventing it for a modern era, and kids are a lot more scrutinizing these days, and the parents too, I bet.
Oh, they absolutely are. So back in 2008, my partner Isaac Sitt and I got together and formed Vesper with the sole purpose of getting into the student housing space. And the reason we did that was we looked at the numbers. We said, wow, it's 20 million kids going to college in the United States. And of those 20 million, 15 million need to live off campus and need to find housing.
Right.
Then we looked at who was in the business, and we found the largest guy owns about 100,000 beds. Wow, 15 million humans need to find campus, need to find housing, and the biggest guy only owns 100,000.
That's crazy.
And nobody's from New York.
Right.
They're not nuts like we are.
Right.
So I said, we're going to enter this space, and we're going to kill it.
Yeah.
And so we did just that. And what I noticed was, well, we spent about a year studying the business, really traveling and, going out there, going to the conferences, and we didn't have anything to speak of other than what we had in our previous life, but we called ourselves reverends without a church because we were walking around acting like we knew everything, and really we weren't. But
reverends without a church, I like that.
And so we studied the business, as I like to do whenever I get into a new space, and what I found was interesting. I walk into a place and say, when was this built? And they'd say, well, it was about a year ago. And I say, are you kidding? Is this a nursing home or a place for students? For students. I was like, this is horrible. And I would travel.
So what made it horrible? Was it just very institutional look and feel? Was there just a lot of negative energy, dark?
Am I allowed to curse on this?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Don't fucking curse.
Okay, good. They were just shitholes. You could say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but shit was in the eye of anyone that walked in.
But do you think that the reason being is that people didn't take their consumer seriously? They overlook, because in the hotel business, a lot of people take their consumer seriously because, they're paying the bill.
I'll tell you what it is.
Because they were kids, you think people took advantage of them?
I think at the time there was more demand than there was supply. And so back then, owners in student housing didn't necessarily have to work hard for a living. So they didn't have to do much. I go to the Hilton in Tel Aviv, Israel, and you go there, and it's the place to be in Israel when you go to Tel Aviv, yet it's a shithole. And I would say, why do the owners not renovate this hotel?
Because they don't feel that they have to.
Exactly. And this was the case in student housing, but that changed. So we entered the space, and I felt that if I'm going to be in this space, as I am with anything I do, there's no such thing as the status quo. There's no such thing as mediocrity. And, I'm a child of turning things around. I'm a turnaround kind of guy. And for me, I had a different bent on how things should be for the kids. And not only that, but I would go in and I would poll a lot of these kids. And what I found was that when you go into a typical clubhouse,
Right.
the amenities they had there were broken gaming machines, golf simulators, movie theaters. The kids weren't using any of this stuff. And I would ask the kids, what do you like? And they said, the truth is, we like to study, we like to work out, and we like to socialize.
Right.
I'm like, there's none of this for these kids. And not only and even if there was, it looked horrible, they wouldn't want to be there.
Right.
So we went in and we repurposed.
Right.
Not only did we redesign into something unlike anyone has ever seen in the space, and we can get to that in a minute.
Oh, we will.
I'm sure. But we repurposed the space, and we went in there and completely changed it around where, the kids like to party, but they like to party somewhere else, trash that place, and
Right.
come home.
That's so funny. My daughter said that.
Yeah, that's why I was in a fraternity. We trashed that
Right.
house, and then I could go back to my apartment. back home.
I said, babe, you guys are living off campus in this house. Like, I don't want a bill at the end of the year from the owner. And she goes, Dad, we don't have any parties here. I was like, oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So this is amazing to me. I love when an idea that is so freaking obvious, but nobody jumps on, and then you came in there and you're like, we're going to totally reinvent this, and it's just like, duh, what a moment that is, and how pretty freaking cool it is that you're able to do something that's really connecting with the students, but just asking a few simple questions.
What's the one biggest change that you did? It could be a moment. It could be one of your student housing units. What's the one amenity or thing that you've done over the years that was the biggest wow factor for students?
Well, I think it's not one amenity. It's the look, the complete culture
Right.
of the property. So when you walk, I wish I had pictures to
Right.
show you before and afters. But
we're going to create a visual, an audio videoscape for that.
Our first deal was in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We bought a property called Harbor House in Ann Arbor. It wasn't even as nice as a nursing home. It was really bad. I went in there and I literally gutted the entire place and turned it into my inspiration at that moment was the Mondrian Hotel in Miami.
Right.
And there's a lot of white marble. It's clean, it's fresh, it's cool, it's hip, and that was the direction I went towards.
It's the first place I ever spent $20 on a martini.
There you go. And so what I was doing there was really against the grain. My construction people, my management team, and at the time I didn't have my in-house management company. I launched that 4 years ago. Because when you get into a business that's a sister to hospitality, the first thing you do is you do not manage. You know what you know and you know what you don't know. And we knew at the time managing something that is that management intensive is suicide.
Right.
So we hired a third party, but
You realized you were smarter pretty quick.
not only that,
right.
but there's asset managing and there's Elliot Tamir.
Yeah.
And so I went in there and I was literally, every decision down to the screws on every light fixture had to be aligned perfectly. And they thought I was nuts, but I was paying customers, so they listened. And they not only they listened, but they started learning. But that took a little time. Anyway, so to answer your question, I turned this into a white winter wonderland, white marble everywhere, white couches.
Wow.
It was a stark difference. No one had ever done anything like this, and they were all telling me, "You're crazy. We can't clean the grout on the floor. The couch is going to be a disaster." Bottom line is that property turned around. It was 100% leased every year after that. We raised rents at least 6-7% year over year.
Right.
Created tremendous value. We had subsequently sold that property for a tremendous profit. And everyone that said you shouldn't and couldn't and wouldn't, it turned out to be complete success and proved them wrong. So that was a big wow factor.
You think because you took it so much upscale and there was never a product like that before, that the students behaved according to the environment that they were in. So they were looking at it like, oh, we got this crappy place. We're going to behave as it's, we're going to respect the place as much as the ownership respects the place. When they come to your place, all of a sudden it feels much more upscale and quality, and the students have the tendency to just respect that, right?
It took time for them to get to that. It was a shock for them.
Right.
It was a shock for the employees. It was a shock for the managers. It was a shock for everybody, really.
Right.
So it took them a little. They needed a minute when they walked in. When we first launched the clubhouse. And
that was a really good question, Glenn. And it's true. When you do renovate, and especially if it's white and it's a little bit more delicate than what they're used to, people tend to behave differently. That doesn't mean you don't have couple shitheads that are going to trash the place.
Everyone's got a couple shitheads.
That's going to happen, but it does give you a sense of, oh, I gotta pay attention a little bit, and I don't want to ruin my house, so let me go to somebody else's house. To your point,
and not only that, but it gets to leading up to where we are today with respect to service, and we'll get to that. But I needed a consistency with our management team in terms of that aesthetic is here. Now the service to the customer has to be here. There has to be a consistency. So that was probably even a bigger challenge for us throughout the years.
Right. So I'm curious, what is the leasing requirements for it? I don't mean dollars and cents. I mean, is it just per year, per semester? How does that work?
It's annual.
Okay.
It's 12 months. Yeah. We don't really do by semester. We lease annually.
Right.
12 installments.
That makes a lot of sense to me, and it's probably a good model for your business as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some people say, isn't it 12 months and they go home for the summer? They go home, but they pay us for
so
good.
Let me ask you a question. Being a New Yorker, being around a lot of real estate people, why not just open hotels in New York City? Why go outside New York City, go into a venture you know nothing about, far from home, whereas in New York, there are a lot of people that can help you manage a hotel. It's right in front of you. You come from New York City real estate. You ran parking lots in New York City, so you know the city. Why go into Texas and open up something you've never done before?
Well, I'm going to adjust the question a little. You said, why not hotel?
Don't adjust my questions, man. It's my friggin' show, bro. Don't come in here and Elliot Tamir this podcast, bro.
I'm gonna. There's two parts to that, okay? First of all, I am going to adjust it, and then we'll get back to your question. Yeah. We didn't get into student housing in New York for a reason, okay? I am a New Yorker, New York at heart. I've always done forget about it. I've always done everything in New York. How we got into the space is a story.
Right.
We own property in Bushwick. We own property in Williamsburg. I've done a lot of real estate deals in
a couple of neighborhoods
Williamsburg,
that have
Brooklyn.
Completely transformed over the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah, I entered Williamsburg in 1997.
Oh, you're a genius, sir.
And
I don't call him Elliot. I call him Cha-ching.
Tell that to my wife. Developed a lot of property there, and one day it was about 2007. Right before the recession hit, everything was great. Then the recession comes, and we're noticing a lot of our tenants are having problem paying the rent. One area where the money was just flowing was in two particular buildings we owned right next to a teaching hospital in Bushwick, Brooklyn. And we go and we're like, what's going on? Why are these people paying? And the reason is their parents, these are students in a medical teaching hospital, and their parents are guaranteeing the rent. And there was that aha moment. It was like, wow. Right. Parents guaranteeing students, there must be a student housing business.
Right.
That was the aha moment.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so then I said, okay, well, NYU, we've got 8 million people in this city, and there's got to be millions of students. Let's look into it. And so I did just that. But what I found was there really wasn't a student housing business in New York anymore. And the reason was a couple of developers took advantage of a zoning allowance to build dorms in New York by they would get something called floor area ratio, where you could a certain amount of floor area you're allowed to build in a development, and for student housing you were given a larger amount of floor area if you were building student housing, so you were given a larger FAR. And what happened was these developers, they didn't want to build student housing, they wanted to build condos, and so they took advantage of this law. And they went and they told the building department, we're building student housing, give us more FAR. And they ended up building condos and selling them for more than they would have been allowed to under the regular law. The building department eventually caught wind of that, and they changed the law. So in New York, if you want to build student housing or you want to buy and run privately held student housing, you have to sign a deal with an accredited institution for 10 years.
Right.
So that means I've got to buy a building in New York for $100 million.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Do you hear that noise?
What, the people next door?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Our gorgeous new mics are going to cut out a lot of that. So
I love it.
You got nothing to worry about.
Okay.
And we're in Vegas. There's action.
Right. Okay.
We can't turn down their laughter. But it's okay. Nobody can hear it. Please continue, sir.
So these developers took advantage of this law and started building properties way, way, way larger than they should have. The Department of Buildings caught wind of this. They changed the law. So now to build student housing in New York, you need to sign a 10-year lease with an accredited institution before you could put shovel in the ground. That means I need to buy a building for $100 million, hope and pray I could make a deal with a university. And if I can't, got to find a different use. So there really wasn't a business to be had in New York for student housing. That's when we went around the country. In terms of hotel, to answer your question, Anthony, well, first, I was never in the hotel business. Okay, the idea came to us to be in student housing. That was the idea. So I never really pursued hotel per se. But what I did know about the hotel business was it was in a recession. It was the first one to get hit, and when things turn around, always the first one to come back. So it wasn't the space I originally ran after, so to speak. But now being in kind of a sister business, but not one that is exactly that, I guess you could say I got my feet wet in the service space, and now I think I'm ready to go that next level.
Yeah, go on.
I know a guy.
But but at the time, hotel just didn't enter my mind. Student housing did. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
but I think this was a good segue.
And let's tie it a little bit closer to the hotel industry there for a second. In the hospitality industry, you know, guys, that it's a cyclical business. It goes up, and then after a while, when you can't push that RevPAR anymore, and that supply-demand economics starts to change, boop, you start to lose the rate.
What was that?
Boop. A lot of the hotel companies out there have learned that by building properties adjacent to or making deals to build hotels on campuses creates much more of a recession-proof product. People are coming and doing business at the universities, and people need to go to the games and all of that kind of stuff. It's the same kind of idea, but now we're talking housing for 1 year at a time. Talk about a recession-proof business. That's why I think this is so fascinating, and that's why I think this works perfectly for us to talk about in the terms of the hospitality industry too, Elliot. What a fabulous idea.
I appreciate that. And so instead of going to hospitality, we brought hospitality to student housing. And that's what it's in the name of our company.
And I think that's a good segue into how Elliot and I met. And Elliot reached out to me because he watched Hotel Impossible, and he said, "Oh, that guy's as crazy as I am." And Elliot can kind of finish that story. But I was impressed with Elliot that, like, student housing and, like, you care about 5-star service, and you hired Forbes Travel to teach you how to do service better for your team. You're spending all this money. This is student housing. These are kids with silo cups and, you know, doing beer pong, and you're worried about their environment. That meant something to me. And that's how him and I bonded. And, like, he lives it. I mean, you go in his office, the way he dresses, the way he is. And just now I was fortunate enough to be invited to do a Q&A with his team. And
that's what we just finished up now, and the event's still going on. So if you do hear a little noise in the background, it's because everybody's having a great time at this
They're still
event.
cheering Anthony.
Yeah, they are. It was such a bang-up session. It was awesome.
I did get a standing ovation. I'm very excited about it.
I was very excited for you as well. Usually whenever I get off a stage appearance, it's just cricket, so it's fun to see the
like, I got out of the bathroom. Yeah. But I've traveled all over the country doing speaking gigs. And I'm not saying it because Elliot's here and Jessica, his magician. SVP, I call him magician, amazing, and she'll come onto the mic in a little while, is here. It's because there's a feeling in that room that I haven't felt before. Legit feeling. Like a legit feeling from all backgrounds. You know, all races, all creeds, all colors, all economic backgrounds. And it was like one unit. And that spirit when I walked on stage was infectious. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's Vegas. I'm sure that everybody went to sleep at, 11 o'clock at night, like Elliot went to sleep at 6 o'clock yesterday afternoon, but, he's old.
In his pajamas.
In his pajamas. And I got a picture. He sent it to me. It was weird. But, but
yeah, it's the best picture you ever got.
but what's interesting is there was there was a thirst for knowledge.
Right.
People were there ready to hear me say something that would help them. Mm-hmm. So you knew when you said something, I was working harder than I normally do because I knew they wanted it.
Right.
There's a lot of times where people are forced into a seminar or into a speaking gig where they have to be there. Like they had to be there, but they literally, I looked in their eyes and they're like, "Oh, I gotta really come up with something special here." And I didn't really think about that when I was up there, but like they made me just reach higher. And I didn't realize that until now, speaking to you on the mic. I did not realize I was working and reaching higher because they inspired me. And that really comes from you and your partner and Jessica and your team. And I mean it from my heart. So it's so amazing. That. He's just not walking the walk, you know. He's backing up what he says. And you know, there's two elements to any successful business. There's the P&L, the numbers, right? So they do that really well. They buy the real estate really well. And then the management company. If you buy the real estate poorly, everybody in the environment suffers.
Right.
And that's what people don't understand enough about, in the hotel business at least, is you buy that real estate poorly and my housekeepers are going to be miserable because there's no money and resources. You buy it well and you can make a profit, then everyone in there has an ability to become a better manager, become a leader, and be inspired, and hopefully one day buy one of the properties from Elliot.
I got to ask you, Elliot, on this same type of topic, I noticed a very, very high level of engagement this morning. Nobody was on their cell phones. Everybody was really focused. So it comes down to culture.
Well, there was one, but we're not going to tell Isaac anything.
Yeah. So it comes down to culture, Elliot. How did you set the stage for creating the culture that you seem to have created, which in my opinion is that highly engaged, motivated, interested person that wants to not just do well for their careers, but for the people that are in your buildings?
You know, the interesting thing is, Anthony said today, he said, you know, I never had any training for any of this. And I'm going to say the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's wiring, and I'm a big believer in wiring in general. And the wiring from the top really trickles down. And, you know, when I go back 8-9 years ago when we had third-party management, I was really the whole thing. I traveled literally every single week to every property. I went there, sat with every...
Wow.
And it's true. And I sat with every staff member, whether they were a porter cleaning up cigarette butts or the general manager and everyone in between. I would take them for lunch, talk to them about their life, get to know them. Of course, talk about the property, the pros, the cons, the problems, the great stuff, and everything in between. Develop relationships. These are human beings. But not only that, they're working for you. And not only are they working for you, right? They're working for you thousands of miles away, right? Two things could happen when I leave that property. I could leave and they say, that motherfucker, I can't stand him, and get on their phone. Or they could say, I love that guy. I want to work harder for him. Right. What idiot would go with the former?
Yeah.
Right? But you want to know something? Most do. They don't really care. But I'll give you another one. I gave you a calculation there, but I really, really genuinely enjoy these people. I love to visit with these people. I love to get to know these people. And
Who's that young lady? I'm going to interrupt you.
And I love to motivate
Who's that young
lady?
Erin
Mahone.
Okay, Erin.
And there's a story behind that, I'll tell you.
Erin Mahone, I don't mean to interrupt you. I normally don't do that on the mic, but it's just
That's
really...
my job normally.
No, but it's really important.
And I don't let anybody interrupt me.
There was a young lady that I met before I went on stage this morning named Erin, and what is her job?
She's the National Director of CLS Hospitality. We have our own hospitality division that is based off of the Forbes Travel Guide training platform. And she runs it. But we created that. It doesn't exist.
I spent 2 seconds talking to her, and I hugged her before I knew her name and even shook her hand. There was just some energy coming at me from her. It was like, I need to hug you, and I need to know you, and I need to be like...
That could be dangerous in this.
So, but then after the Q&A, I went over to her, and I gave her another hug, and I said, man, you were so engaging and great questions. And I said, you know, how'd you come to work here? She goes, Elliot hired me, and I love Elliot, and wherever Elliot brings me, I'm going to go. And him and I don't always agree on everything, but I absolutely love him, and he inspires me every single day. And she didn't say that anywhere near Elliot. So that says a lot about the inspiration. So tell me how you met this young lady.
Erin worked for the third-party management company that managed our properties. And like I said, not only did I get to know, and she was not at the property level, she was at the regional level. Okay, she was one of their regional folks. So not only did I get to know the property level folks, but even the regional, because again, I was very intense in terms of being on top of everything, getting to know everybody, and Erin was one of them. And I always admired her. What I noticed was her employers did not, and I found that odd. But at the same time, I was not the kind of guy that would take anyone from someone I'm doing. But I just wouldn't do it. But as time went on, I developed a relationship with Erin as I had with many, many, many of the other site folks at all levels. When we launched our third-party management company, Erin was like, I have to come with you. I can't stay here. And I said, Erin, I have a relationship with your employer. It's not the ethical thing to do. Let the cards fall as they may. Let the chips fall as they may. And it happened that way. So Erin and I stayed in contact. She left her employer, came on with me. And it was interesting because they really didn't see the value in Erin. They didn't see the human being in Erin. And that's the difference.
Right.
Is I get into the soul, the spirit, really who that person is and what they're about. And when we transitioned in 2016, right? Was it 16? When we transitioned and launched our management company, we transitioned 17 properties, 15,000 beds, a few hundred employees. Those employees worked for our management company, but now they're supposed to work for me if they want to. We had zero attrition. We retained every single person. A lot of their regional folks came with us. Now, we retained the folks that were for us because not everybody spoke our language. We have a specific language we speak. We work hard. We celebrate harder. We don't thank God it's Friday. All that. That's not us. But these people came on board, and a lot of them are in that room today.
Right.
And still
And
with
you
me.
can hear how happy they are if any
And
sound bleeding over.
Erin is one of them. But Erin didn't work directly for me, but really wanted to come on board, come into something special. And when I speak about some of the executives, like Jessica sitting next to me, is a story behind that too. Everybody wanted to jump on board this train because this was the train of passion. It was the train of hard work. It was the train of collaboration, communication, respect, support, training, recognition, rewarding. I can go on and on, but it was all of that.
It's interesting you say train. Someone once said to me, I don't know where you're going, but I want to get on the train. And that's what you inspire. It's like they don't know where you're going. You don't even have to tell them where you're going. I just want to get on that train because it seems like we're having fun.
My executive team, led by my chief operating officer, Jim Shoulders, they all came on board. We launched this thing. The idea was about 2014 to build a management company. I had to do it secretly because if my management company found out I was building one, they would jump ship.
Of course.
And so I had to build this thing in an incubator, pay people massive amounts of money in salary to leave, come to me, and yet we didn't launch yet. But what was interesting was when I approached Jim, and I did it through a recruiter, these people were not going anywhere. They had no plans to go anywhere. They were making very good money. They had very cushy jobs at the executive level of the largest owner of student housing in the country. It's a REIT. They're a public company. But yet, there was one reason. They all decided to take a leap of faith and go with a company that, even though we owned real estate and we were sizable, this was a startup management company that could easily fail. Two guys they met from New York. They don't know who the hell I am.
Right.
Yeah, they see the passion. They see all of that. Great. But, you don't know if
They're probably in it
what I'm
because of the
selling
hair.
is true. The hair. That could be true. They all took the leap of faith.
Right.
They left their cushy jobs, their positions, their salaries. These people have families, Jessica included. And they came on board. And it was because of one reason. Culture.
Yep.
They weren't happy.
That's
And I learned so much from that, and that's why I double and triple down on the culture of campus life and style of CLS, because that will set you free.
Right.
If your people are happy and you have the right culture, you can scale to any size, and you will have the right people running that.
Right. So let's bring Jessica in here now. So we only have 3 mics, not 4. So we're going to be sharing one. So forgive us over there. So I guess, Jessica, the story is, how did you wind up getting involved with this guy, and what's been your perception of building this company?
Sure. So I had my own consulting business, and Elliot, Tamir, and Vesper Holdings, they were a client of mine, and I was kind of brought on to be a fixer. I mean, if there was a property that was struggling with marketing, driving traffic, closing on leases, he would bring me into one of his properties, and I would be a third party to help.
You ever hear the wolf in Pulp Fiction? You know the wolf in Pulp Jessica.
So that's how I knew him, is I would take on some of his properties and I'd help them along. And the one thing that was different, and I had been in third party in one of the largest third party operators for student housing in the nation. I ran their marketing department. And I did notice there were some differences with the way that Elliot interacted with his staff. He had a personal connection with so many of his team players that I think that's really what paved the way for our successful launch. It wasn't just that, we were looking for employees to fill the spot. We literally knew what the individuals brought to the table, and we went after them, and they knew that, we cared and that Elliot cared long before they found out that he was launching his own operating company. And for me, here I was, with my creating invoices and collecting checks and hopping on planes and going to fix the next problem. And then one day Elliot's like, hey, why don't you come to my New York office? I want to talk to you about something. And that's where he told me that in an incubator, he was creating this world-class operating platform. He was funding it so that they could get their act together, get the systems in place, really educate themselves on the best of every element of the operating platform, and prepare it before we launched. And he invited me to join the operation. And it wasn't a shoo-in. I needed to meet and make sure that the culture gelled, that I knew the other executives, and that, it would work out. And once I found out the rock star team that he had picked out, and then I remember going to Austin, and they had a conference planned, and I was supposed to join them for a meet and greet and then head on my way. And I ended up staying for the rest of the conference. And I loved the fact that in our young industry, I could sit there at a round table and have a conversation where we could all speak the same language. We'd walked a day in the shoes. We'd grown up in the industry. It wasn't that, I came from commercial and I need to understand everything, by the square foot. We literally all knew student housing, and that was our career path.
Fascinating. So, Elliot makes a lot of good points there. And again, back to this service and culture element of it. When did you guys come to the idea of applying the Forbes travel solutions to something that's not a traditional hospitality model?
We started building incredibly beautiful jewels. I call them jewels, works of art. These properties that we were putting together. And anyone that would walk in to one of our clubhouses would be in awe.
Right.
And what I started noticing was, I've got a Ritz-Carlton, I've got a Four Seasons, I've got something incredible, but my staff isn't getting it. There's no consistency. Our service is Hampton Inn at best. And that bothered me. Then I would look at online reviews. The world is changing. It's changing very fast. Our customer is very different than it was before. Online reviews means everything. Okay, customer service is everything. And not only that, I'm just wired that way. I'll go back to the wiring, but it's in there. It's like a dormant thing that was there that comes out. And one day I woke up and I said, how am I going to train these people? How am I going to train all of my people to get it, to understand that I'm delivering this work of art, and the way they treat the resident has to be consistent with what the resident is seeing, because it's not there now. And I had asked around. I said, there's got to be, listen, I walk into all these 5-star hotels, these restaurants, and these spas all around the world. These people know exactly what to say. How does this guy remember my name every time I walk into the lobby? It's not by coincidence. These people are trained, and there is somebody. There is a business. There's a business for everything, right? This cup here, there's a business. There's a business for somebody training somebody in a 5-star hotel. I want that person.
Fascinating.
And I set out to find them.
Right.
And I found them.
Right.
And when I met with them, it was the same love affair I had with Anthony.
Yeah.
The same exact thing. We just spoke the same language. And they looked at me and they said, I don't understand. We do this for hotels. We do this for 5-star restaurants and spas. We don't do this for conventional multifamily or student housing.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
It just seems so anathema to what they're used to.
Yeah, but, I said to them, listen, my customer, Gen Z, that's what our customer is. They're the folks that become millennials, right? And they have just become so much more demanding. They want it yesterday, especially, the click generation, right? Everything is at the click of a button. Everything they want yesterday. They're not as patient as people used to be. And I don't even know when people are ever patient, but this is at another level. They need it yesterday. And, complacency, becoming complacent or complacency is dangerous.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, Elliot, because we're in an on-demand culture. You can watch all of your entertainment by clicking a button. You could order something by clicking the order now on Amazon, and boom, it's there for you the next day. And even in Manhattan, it's the same day.
And that's where I sensed the world was going, and I'm not the only guy to sense that. And so I said, we've got to bring another level of service to our industry. And, one of the secrets of business is differentiation. And what is your edge? What makes you different? And then we started out with what I call art, and we wanted the consistency with what I call excellence. And our mantra, our business is art. The mantra of our business is art meets excellence. Okay. That's who we are.
Right.
But art meets excellence at a value. I am kind of the Ian Schrager meets the Peninsula at a value.
Awesome. I love that. Anthony?
That explains everything.
Yeah, it really.
I love it.
It really does.
And you see, people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're so passionate," and I don't know what that means because I can't see it.
It means you care.
I'm looking at him. It's like looking in a mirror. It's like I get it now. I get what
you don't have my hair. You don't have my hair.
No, but literally, like I understand, like when he says wiring. I don't use the word terminology that I'm wired a certain way, like just who I am and just where I was born. But it's like you can't get that out of him. That's like he will die. He can't breathe unless he does business this way.
Right.
Even if he loses a couple dollars, doesn't matter. This is the way it's got to be done because it's the right way. And Jessica's nodding her head. What does that mean, Jessica?
Yeah. And then I got a question for you after that.
Yeah, I think you're completely correct. I mean, sometimes we've even had initiatives where we're like, oh, this is over the top. I'm not sure it's going to work in student housing. And he's like, just this time I'm going to, pull the card. We're going to do it my way. And, we've become believers. I mean, hospitality is a great example. It's easy to say we want a reputation that precedes yourself. Well, what if your customer graduates? Every senior class graduates and every year you have to reinvent your image over and over again. And yet we do now see that the hospitality and the service resonates because the customer's different. They're savvy. They expected hospitality and customer service before they moved out of mom and dad's house.
And that's where I bring the question to you is if it is something that's dealing to the parents as well, you have to not just appeal towards the resident, but the people who are ultimately going to be paying the bills. Not that some of the kids out there aren't paying their own bills, but the lion's share is probably mom and dad. So how do you use through marketing and stuff like that to get that message out to them that they're going to have this great experience and that they should trust in your company?
Right. Well, we've always had a dual customer. We got to check the boxes for all the things that mom and dad care about. They're the ones that are seasoned. They've, seen the world longer. They understand how it works. So they're going to make sure that we're quality, that they get their dollar's worth, that their son or daughter feels safe. Heaven forbid you use the word safe. You can't guarantee that, but they need to make sure that we provide a quality environment. All at the same time for figuring out how to appeal emotionally to a student who's making decisions on things that are intangible. They want to feel popular. They want to, feel like they're, amongst their friends and that they're doing something that appeals to the greater group of their peers. Everybody wants to be an individual. However, they're still moving in a herd, if you will, in college. They're finding their way. So it is definitely, we're held accountable on all fronts. We need to emotionally appeal. We need to be popular. We need to attract the students. Right. And then it's the rubber meets the road when it's the parents. And we've got to back it up with quality.
Very insightful. And Elliot, I could see why you wanted to grab this one.
Listen, you want to bring them in with the art, right? That obviously draws them. It's like when you go to the bar, right? And you meet somebody. First thing is the attraction. Then what's the content? What's inside the substance? And that's the excellence.
Right.
And so, the kid may want to live there. I want to live here. I want to live here. But then to get them to renew, to keep them, you've got to have that consistency, give them the service, and the parents will feel so comfortable when they tell their parents what kind of service they received, and they feel safe, they feel like they've been served properly, they're respected. They really appreciate that.
And you have to deal with so much more, because when I went to college in the fall of 1988, my parents didn't have any concept of any of this kind of stuff. The world has changed so much, and now as we're raising our kids, and my kids are going to be in college in a couple of years, we've totally transformed parenting and want to be a lot more closer in contact with our kids and have a lot more expectations as well.
Yeah, the helicopter.
Yeah.
Parent.
So I want to back up, and I want to ask Jessica a question.
Uh-oh.
How many times before people, including yourself, really cemented their understanding of Elliot, on a daily basis did people roll their eyes when he left the room?
Ooh, good question as we reset that.
Hold on, let me think about how far away is payday.
I say the more they roll their eyes, the better job I did.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's my whole point.
I honestly don't think that they roll their eyes at all. He is a character, and it's a character that people look forward to. I mean, some of his antics, we know that he's serious, and sometimes that's laughable on the front end. But he believes it, but he's just so real. I mean, as much as he's over the top, going back to wiring, that's really Elliot. And so when he comes down to the property and he's full of energy and he wants to know your business and how's your family doing, and he spends as much time in the back of the house with maintenance and how things are going as he does with the front of the house, most people, the jet hits the ground, they get off, they look, they've got an hour and a half, they got a mixed lunch in there, they make sure that they're seen. They make sure that they can talk about being on site, and then they roll out. And Elliot, he covers a lot of ground, but he actually cares about the details and cares about your personal business. And I think that's what goes a long way. Where they're not rolling their eyes, they're more laughing about, oh, that's Elliot.
Excellent.
I think that you couldn't have said it better. And when people are serious about their business and they are a character, to use your description, people want, because they haven't seen it before, and they back it up. So yeah, maybe he's idiosyncrasies, and he's a little different, and he's got a lot of energy, and he's a little crazy, and all that. But he backs it up. He believes it. And when he's speaking from the heart. His mouth's moving, but his heart's moving just as fast. And that's what I saw in that room today, and that's what I see with you, Jessica. Because I would steal you in a half a second if I could afford you to come to my company, because you are absolutely lights out. And when your heart speaks first, people follow you.
I have one little story to speak to that. We were touring a property. This is when we first started out, and an investor wanted to come tour the property. This is our first deal. And we get to the property, and I spent about a half an hour complaining about the color of the mulch. And the guy looked at me and says, you know that guy in the movie Casino, Greenberg, what's his name? Robert De Niro's character. He says, that's the same thing. This guy's the same way. He cared about how many blueberries in each one. I'm investing with you guys because of that.
Right. That's pretty cool.
And I didn't make that up. It was just me. I wanted the dark mulch. How come you had the red mulch? It was a whole thing. And that guy likes to tell that story, but that's a true story. But that speaks to what you
one of my designers on the show said the small things are the big things.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we say that a lot on our show, that everybody does a great job up to about 98%. It's those 2% that really creates a point of differentiation, creates those memories that people are going to want to come back. So in terms of creating this particular product, how much of it was fully baked on the onset, and how much did you learn once you really got into it and put up those buildings?
99%. I'm going to answer for you.
Yeah. He's smiling. Yeah.
I go back to wiring.
Mm-hmm.
It was all there, but it unfolded as we went on.
Right.
But it was all there. You can't make me up. You can't make Anthony up. You can't make this stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
It's either ingrained, it's who you are, or it's not.
Right.
If you are someone who's passionate about your craft and you're in the middle of something that allows for it, you're going to make that happen. Or just go get a job somewhere and call it a day.
If you're a baseball player,
right.
If you're on a team, you have the pitcher and the catcher, the two most important people on the field, and the pitcher is very specific about where that ball is going to go, right? This is where it's going to go, and this is how fast it's going to go, and you're going to catch the damn thing, okay? I may curve it, and you may have to do a split, you may have to jump, you may have to turn, but you're going to catch the damn ball. Mm-hmm. And that's how what I think a visionary leader is with his team. I'm throwing the ball. and this is how I'm going to throw it. And you may give me signals of how I'm going to get that ball over the plate, but catch the damn ball when it comes over the plate. Jessica, you're shaking your head.
I think, again, it goes back to I feel what you're saying. Catch the ball. It might not, been our choice of pitch, but catch the damn ball and run with it. Make the most of what you have to work with. The thing about Campus Life and Style is I do believe that Elliot and Isaac give us, they throw great balls and they give us so much to work with. And we might not have understood in the beginning of what they were throwing at us. And with time and with results and us, kind of believing it, we are all believers now. We do know that, elevating our service and hospitality works.
So you guys are like Chevy Chase and Caddyshack. Be the ball, right?
Let's go back to the name. Campus Life and Style. Just the name.
It sounds like a good magazine, too.
Right. and I think he has one. But just the name is a business. And just the name is inspirational. And the name is visionary. Campus Life and Style.
And I like that logo and the font, too. It really connotes more of that upscale experience where you're going to be taken care of.
You get what you pay for. We hired a great company for that.
Really? You hired someone to do that?
Oh, the logo? Absolutely.
It wasn't you?
No, I didn't design the logo.
I thought you did everything.
No.
Jessica said
I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. I approved it.
He selected the firm carefully.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, why'd you fall in love with me? Why did you pick this little Italian guy from Brooklyn to be your friend?
Because I don't get it at all. I can hardly handle him.
But I think it's an important story.
He has it's the hair. I think he has as little hair as I have much.
When you were watching the show Hotel Impossible,
I'll tell you,
a lot of people reach out to me. I get text messages. I'm very fortunate every single day. LinkedIn, DMs, everywhere. And 99.9% of the people I just don't have time to get back to because they're asking for something. Right? They're not asking to hire me. They're asking for something.
Right.
And if you're a college student, I'm going to respond to you.
Right.
If you're a person that's, and people reach out to me and they're not like subtle.
So let me answer your question.
Hold on. But they're not subtle. They're not like, oh, Anthony, I have this problem and, I really love your show. It's more like, listen, I got this problem. I need your, give me a call.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I'm just going to call you.
Right.
Yeah. And unless you're a college student, I'll do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember exactly the first time we connected or why I decided to connect to him, but I had nothing to gain from him. And it was something that just sparked my interest because he really, to me, what I remember is like he was paying attention.
Elliot?
When I was 13 years old, I went into the car wash business in the summer, my summer town. And originally I did it, I wanted to make some money. But what happened was every time I washed a car, I took a car that was really dirty and cleaned it. There was a feeling that I had when I washed that car. There was no better feeling than handing this car, providing a service, but taking something dirty and turning it into something beautiful. And so that was the turnaround in who I am. That's what I'm all about. I'm about the turnaround. So when I started watching Hotel Impossible, I became addicted to the show because of the turnaround.
Right.
That was originally what drew me to the show when I started watching it. That was originally what it was. Then you've got this show that the premises turn around. Then you've got this guy, the host of the show, who is so passionate about what he's doing that it really it piqued my interest. I wanted to know if this guy, I've never seen anyone like Anthony before. And, I know there's television, but I said, if this guy is in real life who he is on the show, he's someone I need to be friends with, but somebody I need to know because we need to have a conversation and bounce ideas off each other because he speaks my language, and I don't see that every day.
Right.
And so, and there was another reason also. I got my son, Eddie, was also involved in watching with me. We would sit on the couch and watch it all the time. My son loves it. And I said to Eddie this exact thing. I said, Eddie, I've got to get to know this guy. If he's really like that in real life, I've got to get to know him. And my son says, yeah, but Daddy, he's on TV. You're not going to get to him. And I said, don't ever say that. Don't ever think you cannot get something done. Don't ever put a wall in front of you and what you want and your passion. I am going to get to him, and then we're going to become friends if he is that person. And I did. Tracked him down, and it wasn't that easy, but we got on a phone call, and 3 hours later, it was love at first phone call.
Wow.
Neither of us would shut up. His assistant was on the call listening in, and she was like, all right, can you guys just get a room? and
we did.
And it was a clean one. And the rest is history. We really bonded on a personal level. We have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Anthony. And who knows where it leads in life.
Well, that's the whole thing. It doesn't necessarily need to lead to something. If it's meant to be, it'll be meant to be. But it's about surrounding yourself with good people.
It's about surrounding yourself with great people. And the interesting thing is, I had lunch with the folks from Forbes Travel Guide a couple weeks after I spoke to Anthony. And I'm like, guys, there's this guy you really need to meet. Anthony, and they stopped me. He picks up the phone. His guy is Peter Crissetti's the head there. And he calls Anthony. Like, what? He gets answer. You know this guy. It's such a small world, but the truth
Such
is,
a small world.
there aren't that many people that speak this language, that get it, that understand it.
You know what it is? It's like, again, meeting you and meeting Jessica and your team. I literally just tears in my eyes. I get emotional about this stuff. It's like, I don't want anything from you. I just want you to be real. I don't give a shit how much money you have. I don't give a shit how much real estate.
He doesn't.
I don't give a shit who you know, who you don't know. If you're real, I'm in. If you're not real, you can go scratch your ass. Because I can get paid to speak 100 other places. I can hang out with 100 other people. And like being in this room today, meeting Jessica and your team, it's like I fell more in love with you today because it's like they backed up everything I knew in my heart. I didn't show up thinking it wasn't true. But when you have people from all different walks of life, and even politically that's so different in the way they think, I mean, and everybody still loves each other. Like when I see different, like, and again, it goes back to what America's built on. America, and the reason I went in the military, America's built on no matter where you come from, no matter how much money you have, no matter the color of your skin, no matter who you love, this is America, we're going to make it work. In that room, that was that room.
And what you saw
to me is inspirational.
And what you saw in that room is very real. It's very real. And I spoke to it yesterday when I gave a speech, and I said,
well, you can't fake it.
And I looked in the room and I said, a lot of people many companies have these conferences, and most of the people can't stand going to them. They don't like the people they're with. There's always this separation. It's like oil and water. And I looked at everyone in the room and I said, there isn't one person in this room I wouldn't want to hang out with, grab a beer with, go hang out with. And there isn't anyone amongst all of you that feels that there's anyone you would not want to go with. These people like each other. They genuinely enjoy each other's company. They really enjoy each other. That's so hard to find. But let me tell you, it doesn't just come. You can't make that. It's organic.
No, bullshit.
It's real.
I'm going to call it bullshit. That is actually not hard to find. That's actually very easy to find.
And it's not easy to put together like
that.
No,
it is
in a company,
easy. Listen.
I don't agree with you.
I've gone into very toxic companies my entire career. That is what I've made a living at doing. I didn't make a living from just TV, right? If you want to lose a lot of money, go on TV, okay? It's like buying a boat, okay? My money comes from my industry, my consulting, and my hotel business and turning around hotels. Let me tell you something. It is the hardest and easiest thing in the world to do. When you get a toxic environment.
It's easy if it comes natural to you, but it doesn't come natural to every CEO.
I'm talking about teams. I'm talking about people. If you can tap into people on a real level and a real basic, the first thing I say when I get on stage with people is how I grew up, right? And people are shocked by that. It's like people thought I was somewhere in a mansion somewhere with a silver spoon in my mouth. And when you connect to people in a real way, so what you do is hard for most people.
That's what I mean.
Okay? And it's hard for people to understand that. But it's the easiest thing in the freaking world too. Connect to people in the real world.
Anthony, you gotta be wired for that. That's like saying the guy that won the home run race, it was easy. Him saying it was easy. That's not true. It's not easy for everybody.
I agree and disagree. No. Everything I learned in kindergarten. Did you ever read that book?
Yep. No.
Okay. The best book in the world. Make every single one of your employees read it. Okay? I would literally want you to go on Amazon and buy a copy for every single one of your employees. Everything I learned in kindergarten. Because everything you teach, everything you speak about is that book. And that book will allow them to teach their employees. Okay? Will show them what Elliot and what the team is about. It's that simple. Be nice to people, be respectful to people, show up, shut up sometimes, speak up sometimes, but just get shit done. And so to me, yes, there's no reason to argue about is it easier or is it hard. However, it's right there. You have to want to make people feel good about themselves so you can, like I always say when people say, you're really good at motivating people, it's like, I'm selfish. If I'm around really inspiring people and we're talking, communicating, that actually feeds me. That feeds me. This session that we did this morning, I know you guys are thanking me and it's a great session and everything. You did more for me than I did for you. Trust me. That inspires me.
Well, they say there's no better food for the human soul than to give to another. It's the same thing. When you give charity, you actually, you get just as much, if not more than you receive.
For a year, I've been giving charity to Glenn of being able to do this podcast with him. And I get so much for seeing his little face smiling. Look at that face.
I'm so delighted you'll talk to me.
Glenn's awesome, by the way. You didn't tell me he was this awesome.
Unfortunately, I was going to say, unfortunately, Anthony refuses to speak to me unless the microphone is
I will
on.
tell you
we're
that.
still working on that part of our
Why
life.
don't we all go out for dinner and take these microphones? Can you picture sitting in a restaurant talking this way? That would be awesome.
I will tell you, one of the things I've learned from doing this podcast is, I speak from the heart, right?
Right.
Glenn really is, and you saw it, because I saw when he was asking you questions, you were pretty impressed, and I saw Jessica was, like, he asked really, really good pointed questions.
He's awesome.
So I've learned a lot.
And he's not, by the way, he's not reading from anything. This is just like coming to him.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a sheet or something. There's nothing
lazy.
there. He always says he's 15 minutes from a sandwich and a nap, and he's educated me on this podcast thing, and we're a great team. But again, because we don't really want anything from each other other than to have a good time.
Well, what I want is to have a great conversation with you and to bring out the best in the guests that we have. And that's why I love having you on this show, Elliot, because you espouse those same feelings that we have every day. And it's so easy to talk to you, and you send out such positive vibes, man. I love it.
Let me interrupt real quick. One of my favorite things about
Glenn.
Glenn is, and I've never said this to him before, but he goes in one podcast from, what the fuck is this guy talking about too? That's a really fucking good question. Right? I have no idea what he's talking about. But wow, holy shit. But that came out of left field. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I think you guys can continue talking about me. This is a great turn in the podcast. Now, only if my family would like me this much, then we'd be
So I'm going to ask both you and Jessica a question. Forget about your business. Forget about the hospitality business. What advice do you give to any business in the world? It could be a tech business, a Apple business, it could be anything in the world. What would you say is the most important thing in business? Ladies first, Jessica.
Right, and while you're moving the microphone, we actually put this series in entrepreneurship as opposed to hospitality because it really relates more towards all industries. Jessica?
My advice would be take interest. It's the old adage where they talk about if you're passionate about what you do, it'll come to you, you'll succeed. I started in student housing in 1999. I was just looking for free rent and a little extra money to get through college. And if you actually show up and you care, you ask a question, you want to know why, and that way you can think for yourself and do a better job or suggest things to make the process better. It's not extra work on you. It's because you've taken interest. So if you can just pay attention to your surroundings and just, be awake, pay attention, ask questions, I think you're going to go far in your career and you're going to have more joy doing it.
And that is so true. And one of the things that we try very hard for all of you listeners out there to understand is you have to do what you love. If you're not doing what you're loving, you're belying your true self. You're not letting yourself reach potential, and you're working too dang hard.
And that speaks to exactly what I was going to say is know your strengths and know your weaknesses. Everybody has them. Everybody.
Right.
There's no one that just has strengths. Many people make the mistake. They don't go with their gut, and the gut speaks to your strengths and your weaknesses.
Right.
If they go with the weakness, it's almost impossible to succeed.
When-
So playing to your strength will find your passion. When you find your passion, you will succeed.
And speaking of weaknesses, when do you realize that it's a weakness that can be turned into a strength? Or when should you realize that it's a weakness that you should just not worry about and have other people handle for you?
I think it's case by case, but I think generally speaking, you know when you're like, this is hard, or I don't like this. That's the easiest thing, is to know what you don't like.
Right.
Finding what you like may be a little more difficult and could be time consuming. But knowing what you don't like, what you're not good at, usually if you're not good at it, you don't like it.
Right.
Usually, you know. And then eventually finding your strength. And unfortunately for some people, it takes a long time. For others, I was fortunate. I knew it at 16 years old.
Right.
But there are people that it could take a long time. But when you find, I know Anthony found his passion early on as well. When you know what you love and you're fortunate enough to put yourself in that situation, your chances of success grow exponentially.
You know, two things. One, I didn't know what my passion was. I just didn't want to suck, and I wanted people to believe in me.
But that speaks to the strength and weakness, because if you sucked, you went the wrong way.
I didn't want to fail, and I didn't want. I just didn't want to be embarrassed.
Right.
I wanted to be able to perform. But Jessica, imagine this: your partner Elliot is Isaac Sitt, and imagine for a second, Elliot and Isaac change places for a month. Go.
Ooh.
Well, we would have run out of money a long time ago. There are.
My point.
Yeah.
My point being, not to put you on the spot. My point being is, they both have their weaknesses and their strengths, and they're both perfectly suited to run this company. Could you imagine if they basically decided to change positions? The company wouldn't be in business tomorrow.
No, I mean, there's the left hand is your left hand, the right hand is your right hand. If you chop them off and sew them on the opposite, you've got problems. So they are very well suited for just their demeanor, their passion, and what they're good at for the different sides of the business. One of them is the real estate side, and they both understand each other. And the other one is like running them. And they're both equally complicated. It's the yin and the yang. But again, if you have the worst, plastic surgeon ever, and he's willing to chop your hands off and swap the left and the right, that's not right.
I want to go to the second part of your question. The first part really is when you speak to entrepreneurs and advice, and we talked about strengths, weaknesses, passion, do what you love, etc. But then there's when you actually have succeeded and you're in business, the number one piece of advice you can give any owner of a business is take care of your own, because they will take care of you. I think I've learned that taking care of your own is the only way a business can succeed. No one person can do it themselves. You must. A good leader surrounds himself with great people.
And to that point, you and your partner are suited perfectly, and you take care of each other. You help each other. And just being here, who's the front of, the show? You. And he is the quiet leader in the back. And too many people try to overcomplicate things and try to say, well, you're not good at this, you got to do this, and you have to do that. And it seems like you've really meshed it. And it says a lot
There's
about
a
your
mutual
company.
respect. We respect each other. We love each other. We speak to each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I'm blessed to have the partner I have. We're together now 10 years. We never had an argument.
Wow.
And they said, and you may say, no, but that's not healthy. Well, we have a thing where whoever strongly believes in something strongly wins. And we've had that for now 10 years, and it works perfectly. Because we have a level of respect for each other that is really hard to come by. And I'm very fortunate in that I have such a great partner.
And you're both alphas, so to have two people who are pretty strong-minded, never have an argument, says everything about you two, because that's
well, you
almost
park
impossible.
the ego at the door.
Right.
If you can't park your ego at the door, you got problems.
So I think the big life lesson I'm taking away from this part of the conversation is you have to be really self-reflective and understand where your strengths and weaknesses are and how all of those strengths and weaknesses apply to all the other relationships that you have, not just in your career, but I think in your personal life as well.
Absolutely.
That would be my big lesson.
So this seems to be the part of the show.
Oh, yeah, I'm feeling it too.
Where we ask our guest, tell us something we don't know.
We'll go with Elliot, and then we're going to stick you with Jessica with this question too.
Well, I told you something last night about my pajamas.
Yeah, but that was way too intimate. But tell the audience something we don't know. And again, it doesn't have to be about business or anything that, is inspirational, but just something quirky about Elliot. And I say quirky about you because you're a quirky guy, so something quirky.
Something quirky.
Well, I'll ask Jessica
to
name something quirky about you. I'm sure she'll have 10 of them.
I'd like to hear Jessica's.
So tell us something we don't know about Elliot that Elliot doesn't know about Elliot.
Oh, he knows what I was going to say.
Well, you guys are really having a hard time telling us
All
something
right,
you
so
don't know.
we'll make it easier. Ready?
Yep.
Look me in the eye, Elliot. Ready? On 3, 2, 1. Tell us something we don't know. Go.
Could be anything.
I'm a big game hunter.
There you go.
Oh, tell me about that.
So about 8-9 years ago, no, maybe it was more than that. That was 12, 13 years
As
ago.
50% of our audience just shut off our podcast. Keep going.
I was introduced to the chief of police at NYPD, and this guy also speaks my language in terms of, running a ship.
The little Italian guy.
Michael Scagnelli is his
Yeah,
name.
yeah.
Great guy. I was introduced to him. A friend of mine was a friend of his. He said, "I'm going to the chief's office."
But are you a friend of ours?
And so I went to his office, walked in, and there were literally animals all over the wall, everywhere. And I was really intrigued. I said, "What is all this?" And he says, "I'm a hunter." And he says, "All right, I want to show you something." And he takes me over to the conference room, and he just forgets everything else going on because I piqued his interest. He piqued mine, but I touched on a nerve. I was interested in something that he loved. He took me into the conference room, showed me a video of a hunt, and something just hit me, and I said, "Could I do that? This seems very interesting. I'd like to try." He says, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah." The next day, he calls me. He takes me in his chauffeured car to the police range and starts teaching me how to shoot a rifle. I mean, this is the chief of police. And we just connected that day. It was just
That's
something
cool.
there, and we connected. We became close. And fast forward 12, 13 years later, I've gone on hunts all around the world with him. We became really, really close friends. I was just at his house last week with my sons. And he taught me a passion and a hobby that I never even knew existed in me. But that, I love. And as far as, hunting goes, everything that I hunt is eaten by the people around me. So I don't hunt something just for the sport.
Beautiful.
We've fed poor towns in South Africa. So it's not just about sport. It's a little more than that. And there are rules and ethics to hunting. It's not as simple as go shoot anything or, spray the forest with bullets or anything like that. You can go 3-4 days and not discharge a weapon once because most of the animals you're not even allowed to shoot. The
It's
young
also
ones
one
and
of
all
those
that. So there's
issues-
a lot of rules to it that people don't know about.
And it's a lot of things associated with that are a lot more complex, and you need to really think about it. Like there is a conservation element to it, and a lot of the money that is made off of it helps actually support a lot of these species
we
as
can
well.
go into all of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're helping
right.
towns. They need culling sometimes. There's
Right.
just too much of
Totally.
it,
Right.
Especially the bear season in New Jersey.
Yeah,
it becomes a
absolutely. So
problem.
the message that I want people to take away from this is sometimes things seem one way, but if you apply some critical thinking like we should be doing in all aspects of your life, you should realize that it's not necessarily what you see at first blush.
And this is going to sound counterintuitive, but people listening to this, and I've learned this by listening to other podcasts, is that most animals in the wild die 100,000 times worse in their natural environment, than they do from a hunter. Because if a hunter,
Right.
God forbid, shoots it in the wrong place,
That was gonna be my story.
and that animal is in pain, that hunter not only is embarrassed in front of his friends, literally embarrassed, but goes home.
Well, no, I'm gonna take that a step further. About 7 years ago, we were in South Africa, and I shot a wildebeest, and I wounded it. And all of a sudden, the guide that was with me gets on his radio, and he radios 10 other people, and he says, "Everybody, you need to stop your hunt, get in the car, this is our location, you need to be here now." Within 15 minutes, everyone's there, everyone has to stop and search for the animal because it was wounded. It was wounded, it ran.
Right,
We
of
couldn't
course.
find it, but
Right.
it was
Oh, my
wounded.
goodness.
They would not allow an animal to be wounded because it's suffering. And we searched about an hour and a half till we found it somewhere, and they had to take it out. But that was the level of, some people may say it's not humane, but that's what goes on when an animal gets.
How do you process that moment emotionally?
Well, I was really impressed.
Mm-hmm.
I was taken aback. It really was something special to see the level of care and the respect they have for the animals. Everyone I hunt with they kind of bless the animal when they stand over it when it's deceased and it's there, and they thank the animal for what it's about to provide in terms of its the hide, the meat, and everything. So there is a huge modicum of respect that goes into each hunt.
Mm-hmm. And there's people that don't understand that as they have their hamburger from In-N-Out Burger.
I know,
and they're mad at you, but they're literally just going into a deli and buying it.
So you asked a simple question about a
but I think, that's what's great about that question, because we never know where we're going. So Jessica, tell us something we don't know.
I was going to tell you something about Elliot.
Yes. Please do.
So I'm going to take a different road. It's going to be a much lighter road. But as we talk about wiring, he is, if you visit him in his New York office, and maybe he waited until you were out the door and had left, but he is really obsessive about keeping his desk clean. I have never seen a man pay a check, open his mail, trash it out as fast as he does. And sometimes when we go to the corporate office and we have a meeting, he can't wait for us to leave. He'll go ahead and start Windexing everything mid-meeting to get the smudges off the glass. So that's not just on a Tuesday when he's feeling a little wired. That is every day. He must be smudge-free and perfect, and he probably goes through gallons of Windex a week.
That was a great one, Jessica. She's right. She's right. I have a level of OCD, you can call it. Yep. But, for me, some people that have OCD, it's a disease, right? It really affects their life in a negative way.
Right.
Mine helps me in so many ways. It doesn't affect my life personally at all. And in terms of my business, if I were not OCD and, you can call it organized, I wouldn't be able to run the business that I run. I wouldn't be able to give my people the time that they deserve, answer emails as quickly as I do, answer telephone calls, texts. I am accessible to anyone within the organization at any time of the day without fail. And I answer emails. I have a rule. Unless I am in South Africa and my phone isn't working, I answer emails in less than 24 hours. Usually it's within 7 minutes.
Right.
But there's no such thing as sending Elliot a text or an email and you don't get an immediate response. And that goes for everybody. And you can ask anyone that knows me. And that's because of how organized I am. And that goes towards the OCD.
I think that...
I think it's an ingredient for success.
Yeah, I think I can relate to that because I feel the same way. To me, it's like I don't want to get overwhelmed. There's so many things that come out at us from business, family, friends, life in general, our own brain, that if you don't take care of things as they approach you, then that's how I get overwhelmed. So, Jessica, let's talk about you.
One other thing.
It's not the Elliot show, okay? Or actually it is.
Let me double check that. No, but seriously, I have a son that's got anxiety, and I taught him organizational skills.
Right.
And he doesn't have anxiety anymore.
Right.
So anyone listening that has anxiety, if you can reorganize your life, your anxiety will go away.
Well, what's that show on Netflix or something? Reorganize Your Life. It was like the most popular show.
I don't know.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Well, there's a show basically Reorganize Your Life. It's so popular nobody here knows what I'm talking about. But actually, that Container Store, their stock actually went up since that show's been on because people went out and got containers.
So there's Disneyland, and then for Elliot, there's the Container Store.
Right.
I love it. All right, Jessica.
Where are you going next? Container Store.
Tell us something about you that we don't know, which is pretty much everything.
Yeah. Well, student living is my life, but if it had to be something quirky, I'd say in college, there's thousands of kids out there and only so many jobs. So I was trying to figure out how I could make some money on the side. And I ended up working at a Briggs & Stratton lawnmower engine plant. And cool. I went out there and it was a temp agency that placed me. And I had to get safety goggles and the red shirt that we had to wear. And unfortunately that came out of, my wages for the day. And I was ready to take interest. I was ready to do the best I could. I mean, at least it was an hourly wage. And it it was not something that I excelled at. And even though I had a good attitude by the end of the day, I let it be known that that was probably going to be my first and last day. And it's as if I could hear a sigh of relief across the entire factory floor. I handed back the power tool and I let them know I wasn't coming back, and everybody was relieved.
Yeah, and at least you got a great shirt out of it.
And she got a bonus for not coming back.
Right. So
Can I just tell you a funny story about
please.
Jessica? First of all, Jessica is amazing. I call her all the time my female counterpart because we just think so much alike, and she really is incredible, and no BS, no nonsense, gets shit done. And there's nobody she's a kind killer. There's nobody that executes better than Jessica. Very funny story. So Jessica's on a family vacation. And
she's freaking out. She's nervous.
She's at a lake somewhere with her kids and her husband and whatever. And I'm trying to think exactly how it went down. They're preparing. She's speaking with the executive team, preparing for a meeting or a phone call with me. And she's typing an email to the team. And somehow something goes wrong on her phone. And she ends
it
up
to you.
She presses the button where you could talk to the phone or something happens, and then she starts yelling at her kid. Evan, I'm going to spank you if you don't get away from the lake. You're going to do it. But the Evan part isn't there. It's I'm going to spank you, and if you don't do this now, I'm going to spank you. And if I had it in front of me and I read it, you would be crying and peeing in your pants. Anyway, it was inscribed in that email and sent to the team.
Oh my God.
So it starts off, we're going to meet with Elliot at 2:00 and we're going to talk, and I'm going to spank you if you go near the lake again. And if I still have this email, whenever I want to laugh, if I'm down, that's where I go, and I'm going to send it to you. There is nothing funnier than this email. True story.
That's hysterical.
They tell us something about you.
Well, you know what? Jessica, would you say that's one of your most embarrassing moments?
I have so many, and luckily in this company, those things seem to happen often, and you got to roll with it.
I have her dancing with Santa Claus in New York last year. That's one of our all-time favorites. I can send you that too.
I'm going to tell you one of my most embarrassing moments in my life.
Awesome.
I was in the United States Air Force. I was working as an administrator for the security police. And I was, type A. I was going to school at night, working on the weekends, and I was making my way in the Air Force, and people knew me, and I was, yes sir, no sir. I was an honor guard. I was doing everything extra, because one of the colonels once said, do a little more, you go a lot further. So I did everything he told me to do. So I was excelling. Employee of the quarter, airman of the year, administrator of the year. So I get promoted to be the protocol officer for the wing commander. That's going to God. Okay, you are now going to God. And so I got selected, this little sergeant guy, senior airman at the time, to work as a protocol officer and an assistant to God. So I get there, and I can't tell you, to this day, I can tell you how I felt inside. I was just so crazily, I was overwhelmed. I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to screw up. So my shoes, my uniform, everything's perfect. I go to the bathroom, make sure, the food's out of my teeth, everything's perfect at the time. My hair, everything was great, right? I used the toilet, apparently. I left, and I go in to report to my Master Sergeant Bryant, I believe it was, and the rest of the team. And the colonel was there to greet me as well. So everybody's there. Well, I didn't realize that the toilet paper roll was still attached to my was still attached to my pants. So I walk. Now the toilet is probably the bathroom to my office is probably from here to that door. So that's about maybe 100 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. I had apparently it was a full roll. I had the entire. So now I'm like beet red, right? And they're not really making fun of me because they don't know me that well. So they're kind of like, yeah, no big deal. So all right. So I forget it, go through my day, and I try to forget it. Well, the next day. Now again, the colonel is like, you shit yourself when you see this guy. Like, he is the man. He's in charge of 150 nuclear weapons. And we're bringing on the stealth bomber, the only base in the world to have the stealth bomber. We're talking about he went on to be a general for nuclear assurance around the world. One of the great humans of my life, right? That guy. The next morning, he's leading a parade into my office with every single person on the team with a piece of toilet paper sticking out of their pants.
That's hysterical.
So they made me feel like, all right, you're part of the team. So that was the most embarrassing moment of my life at that point.
Wow.
Wow. Well, that's
hilarious.
That's great.
So tell me about your toilet paper story, Glenn.
There are too many.
Tell us something we don't know.
Well, I'll keep it with the hunting thing. Now, as you can imagine.
You tell me you're a hunter and I'm gonna resign right now.
No, I can't handle it. I definitely can't handle it. I'm a food under the cellophane type of thing, although I do appreciate it, and I really respect the whole notion of, sustenance and where your food actually comes from. No, my story, is more about, the original Nintendo. I don't know if any of you had that. I was, the best in the neighborhood at duck hunt. So, I loved it. It was really awesome. So I liked duck hunt as a kid. And
so you were the weird kid that came out on Saturdays and were like, that's the weird kid.
And now I'm the weird adult.
So at the end of our show, I'd like to ask you a question, a selfish plug. Tell us where we can find you, who you are, what you're about, and go ahead.
I am Jessica Nix, the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Leasing at Campus Life and Style. And you can find me at jnix@clsliving.com.
Great. Elliot?
Elliot Tamir, co-founder, co-CEO of Vesper Holdings, co-founder, co-CEO of Campus Life and Style. And you can Google me.
Because he doesn't do social media.
Right. I love it. Really, really smart. I like that. Any final thoughts from you, sir?
I love that we've incorporated a different business, even though it's the same business, into our program. Mm-hmm. And I love when I hear passionate people talk about hospitality.
Yeah, we got to do some more of that. Get some more outside folks. So the lesson I'm taking away from this, besides the gajillion or so already, is that we can learn so much from other industries. And here in the hospitality industry, we can still get better. We can still incorporate new ideas. We could find success in different ways.
And the only way to get better is what sharpens a diamond.
Another diamond.
That's it. Be around diamonds because you want to get sharpened. I think I'm a smart guy. If I'm not around people that make me better every day, then I just become less smart.
Right. Then why are you hanging out with me, buddy?
Because you make me smarter. All right. So for Glenn, this is Anthony. I want to thank everybody for
checking in.
It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn, teaching you to be the hotelier that you wanna be. It's checking in with Anthony and Glenn.